Meantime, also, Brooks has been outspoken on the issue of domestic violence locally and in Annapolis. During the last session of the General Assembly, lawmakers on both sides pushed for legislation to help protect victims. There were some obstacles along the way, but some victories as well. Tonight, as we continue our special series on domestic violence, Denise Douglas sits down with the state's attorney.
Angela also Brooks is the Prince George's County State's Attorney. She and her team have prosecuted domestic violence-related cases all too often.
What we see more likely than not is the traditional violence, which is a male perpetrator and a female victim. Now, we have seen cases where the men have been victims as well. We recently had a case where a woman ran over her husband in her truck as he ran away from her. But the majority of what we see would have men as perpetrators and the women as the victim.
Victims like Rhonda Santini, who we met earlier this year in Annapolis. She and several other Marylanders were lobbying for House Bill 1396. The proposed measure would have expanded the definition of domestic violence in the state to encompass harassing behaviors and destruction of property.
Abuse has to stop. And I'm just hoping with this bill, the next step would be the accountability of abusers, because that's really where the buck has to stop.
But HB 1396 didn't pass by the end of the 2016 General Assembly session. The bill's sponsor, Delegate Angela Angel, is devastated that it didn't draw enough support.
You know, I'm still advocating for it. I'm still talking with fellow legislators about it. One of the supporters and the original person that originally did the language for the bill in 2005 and who gave me the language last year didn't support the bill this time around. And I've asked multiple people, well, what happened? You know, and they said, well, we wanted to work on the language. Well, why didn't you offer any amendments?
As a domestic violence survivor, Angel knows firsthand how important such legislation is for victims.
And my marriage had at one point escalated into physical violence. After a while, my husband did leave and we were separated. And at a point, he began to constantly call, text. He was calling my job. He would threaten if I didn't listen to him, berate me. You know, he would send me text messages threatening to contact my workplace, threatening to contact people that I associate with, people that I work with, other fellow public officials. I went to court and, you know, explained to the judge what was going on. And he looked at all of the records I had. You know, I'm an attorney. I had plenty of records. I had plenty of evidence. And he said, this is really a shame. I feel very sorry that you were going through this. However, harassment is not one of the reasons that I can give you a protective order.
One bill in Annapolis that indirectly benefits domestic violence victims did pass this year.
We were successful earlier this year to increase the penalty for second-degree murder, for example. This was huge for us. It took us probably at least 3 years to go and to testify to change the penalty from 30 years to 40 years. This was a big deal for us because most of our second-degree murder cases are domestic, where juries may not find that it was premeditated, but instead would find that the violence caused the person to snap. For example, they may find that this wasn't premeditated, but it was second degree instead. If you're sentenced even to the maximum of 30 years and 15 years, you're eligible to be out walking the streets again. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to get more and more time for those kinds of offenses.
Our domestic violence series continues next week.